day number 2 in California, and it's game day, and I'm ready for game day. I got my gear on. I just got a call from my driver. He's here to pick me up. So this is going to be episode number 5 of Chad's Adventures. So welcome to Chad's Adventures episode number 5, and let's go see what we have in store today. All right, well, it looks like my driver's here. So let's check it out, see what's happening today. Good morning. So what are we doing today?
First thing, breakfast.
Breakfast. All right. That's what I like to hear. So we just finished eating breakfast, and now we're about to go to Old Town. And I just wanted to mention that, Connor, people have been mentioning that you just look like a shorter version of me. That means you are a good-looking guy. So just wanted to point that out. So we're on our way to Old Town now, and one thing I have discovered is that my driver has learned the art of the California stop. So,
something matched from Louisiana.
Explain to me the California stop.
You just kind of slow down and make sure that no one's going to run over you, and then you just go.
So it's not really a stop, it's like a slow down and go.
Yeah.
So here I am on this monument where the first colony began, and the plaque says, in this ancient Indian village of Casoy, discovered and named San Miguel by Cabrillo in 1542. I mentioned that yesterday when I was by the bay. It was visited and christened San Diego de Alcalá by Vizcaíno in 1602. Here, the first citizen, Fray Junipero Serra, he planted civilization. California. In California. Here, he first raised the cross. Here, he began the first mission. Here, he founded the first town, San Diego, in July 16, 1769. So this monument here is in memory of him. But I do have to say that he didn't found civilization here, because there was civilization here. The civilization as we know it with European settlement. So he began all that right here in this spot, and I'm just in awe of that. So I'm walking through this park of history, and it's right here where this colony took place. It is very fascinating, and inside the border behind me was one of the buildings called the old Presidio Palace, and they had this monument here, and Connor's taking a look. So it's all through here is where the colony lived, and they built walls around it. It's not the original wall, obviously. They built walls around it. It was like a fort. They built a church in here, a little mission. They had houses. And it's so interesting that this is where it all began. I love history. And I love being able to feel it. And when you come to places like this, it almost feels sacred in a way, because I could just feel the history here. I love it. We're in Old Town now. We're about to do a walking tour, so let's check that out.
So imagine, if you will, nothing here. Very much a barren coastal desert, like this ground right here. That's what it looked like here. Everything that you see that's green has been brought here from somewhere else. All the trees up on the hill brought from Australia. All the trees on the plaza, the grass, everything has been brought from somewhere else. There was a lovely native people that lived here called the Kumeyaay. They were here probably for 15,000 years, they think, and before the Spanish came. They were very nomadic people. They moved from the ocean here in the end of the San Diego River, which they had a little village here called Casoy, and they would go between here and the mountains. Primarily, they would eat wherever they were, whatever the diet was, they would eat abalone, fish, whatever they could catch from the ocean and the river, but their predominant source of food was acorns. Pass these around. There's a lot of scrub oak in the valleys here, and they ate a mash that they made from the acorns. Didn't taste very good to people that came to visit here, but the native people loved it. So imagine, if you will, 1542, a big ship, the San Salvador, comes into the harbor. The native people, this was like an alien for them. They're like, what is this? They had never seen anything like it. They weren't sure if they should be afraid, if they should get ready to fight. It was Juan Cabrillo. Juan Cabrillo had come around Cape Horn. There were lots of Spanish that had come through Central America and South America, and Cortez, of course, a lot of people have heard of. Juan Cabrillo ended up here on the point at Ballast Point, and he said, wow, there's a really nice harbor here, but not much else is going on. They were really looking for gold and silver. They were also looking for a place that was a myth of Amazon, an island of Amazon women. There was a myth and a story that was, I believe it was Greek mythology turned into a Spanish story, and the queen of this place was supposed to be called Califia. So they started calling this California after they thought it was the island. They were looking for those women. They didn't find them. They found the Kumeyaay instead. The Kumeyaay were pretty benign people, very much into the Great Spirit and keeping the earth the way that they found it. They tried to feed the Spanish folks those acorns. They didn't like them very much. So after about 2 weeks, Juan Cabrillo called this place San Miguel. They're very, very Catholic people that were coming from Spain. They would name the places that they discovered and the places that they claimed for Spain after whatever the feast day that was closest. So it was the Feast of San Miguel. So he called it San Miguel or St. Michael. Juan Cabrillo said, we don't really like the acorns that they're feeding us, so we're out of here. So he went up the coast. Unfortunately for him, he fell and broke his arm. He ended up with gangrene and died about 6 weeks later. Word never got back to Spain that they had discovered this and called it San Miguel. Took another almost 70 years before another ship came in. Vizcaino also came into the harbor. He was also looking for gold and silver and riches. He found the native people again. They also didn't like the acorns that they were feeding them. So he came here. He didn't know that Cabrillo had called it San Miguel. So the closest feast day was the Feast of St. Didicus. They ended up calling this San Diego. He claimed it because the Russians were starting to come down from the north. They had established Fort Ross up above San Francisco. They were starting to come down looking for otter pelts. They were more into the pelts and the types of skins that were waterproof. The Spanish were more into the leather goods. So Vizcaino he didn't stay here very long either. He said, it's a coastal desert, barren, not too much going on there. Off they went. This became San Diego. The next time somebody came, they came over land. Gaspar de Portola was an explorer that came across the land. He was working with Jesuit missionaries in Mexico establishing missions. They established 20 down in Mexico, and they got up here. He had Father Junipero Serra. Are you him today? Who are you?
But Junipero was a Franciscan. All the Jesuits are in Baja California. All the Franciscans were in Alta or Upper California.
Right. So what they did was they wanted to establish some missions, and there was something that happened with the Spanish government, with the Jesuits, I believe. They went out of favor for some of the teaching, so they became Franciscan in California. They found this beautiful spot up here on the hill where they put the first Presidio or fort. They also, the first mission in Alta California was also up at the Presidio. So Mission de Alcalá originally was up on the hill there where you see the big flagpole in the fort. So the missionaries really wanted to convert the native people. They didn't like how the Spanish soldiers were treating the native people. There were a lot of scantily clad women, and the young soldiers that were up there were a little bit out of control. So Junipero Serra said, we're going to move the mission. We want more control over how we're converting the native people. So they moved the mission 6 miles east of here on the San Diego River, where they had more control. The mission is still out there. Mission de Alcalá, if you get a chance and you get to visit some of the missions here, that's the first mission in all of California.
So we just finished this tour at Old Town, and really is cool. And I found Pokemon here. Look over my left shoulder. I found Pokemon. So anyway, Old Town is a really cool place. It's obviously an old town, but they've made it into souvenir shops, little restaurants. We just ate at a little Mexican restaurant there, and they have just a lot of old buildings, a lot of history here. You can take tours. We did that guided tour we were just on. Learned a lot of things, and so we're going to check out some of these shops right now. So we're in the store, and there's a lot of jewelry and whatnot in here. But look at this. It's got this book. It's called Manners for Women. I know a few women who should read this. So we're in the Old Town Market. They have all kinds of things to buy here. And as you can see, they have live entertainment. This lady singing behind me. And man, it's just merchandise everywhere. Very interesting. She's taking a picture of me from behind. Look at those things right there. So cool. Standing in the middle of Old Town, and behind me, you see that flagpole back there? That flagpole is actually the mast of a ship that was wrecked off the coast of California here. They salvaged it and turned it into a flagpole. And they say it was probably from a merchant ship because it didn't have a crow's nest on it. If it had a crow's nest, then it most likely would have been a military ship. And just stepping over this way, there's something very interesting to see right here. There is this rock. And Connor, tell us the significance of this rock.
So this is where the first United States flag was planted in Southern California by Lieutenant Stephen Rowan.
Wow. So, and what date was it?
July 29th, 1846.
1846. The United States flag was planted right here in this spot.
By the U.S. Navy.
Go Navy. So we just left Old Town and we're passing by Presidio Park. I was mispronouncing it earlier. It's called Presidio Park. Hey, you know, I'm not really a Spanish speaker, so sometimes I get my pronunciations wrong. Well, we're gonna go down to where they moved the mission to after it was there 2 years. We're going to the mission Basilica San Diego de Alcalá. They moved it there after being in here for about 2 years. They put it inside their fortification here, so we're going to go check it out. Let's go see it. So I'm standing on a spot about 6 miles away from Old Town and Presidio Hill, where they built that first colony in the fortress there of the European settlers, and that's where they built the first church there, the first mission San Diego. And it was moved here about 2 years later in 1771, and Father Serra moved on to establish another mission, and they left this one in charge of the second pastor. I'm going to tell you about him right here. It's got some very sad history to it. Padre Luis Jaime became the second pastor of Mission San Diego in 1771. He was instrumental in moving the mission inland from the Presidio to the present site in August of 1774. But by December of 1774, there were many adobe and thatch buildings right here in this area, Crops were being planted. Many natives joined the mission life. They were baptized as Christians. And progress was being made until the early morning hours of November 5th, 1775, when hundreds of natives from remote villages set fire to the mission buildings. They pillaged the church, and they murdered Padre Jaime as he met them with his usual greeting, "Love God, my children." So he became the first Christian martyr in California, and he's buried underneath the church floor of the Mission San Diego de Alcalá. The Mission Basilica San Diego de Alcalá is very significant in the history of San Diego and of California, in that it was the first Christian mission here. And as I entered the church, I wondered what the people to my left were doing standing there, until I figured out that they were standing there waiting to get into the confessional booth. And as I walked down the aisle of the church, I noticed above the pulpit, I noticed this canopy. And this canopy identifies that this mission is a basilica, which is a church of an important historical significance. It's an honor that's bestowed upon a church by the Pope, and this canopy has papal colors. And as you approach the altar, you will notice on the floor to the right of the altar a marble cross, and underneath that cross, under the floor, lies the remains of Father Luis Jaime, the second pastor of this church and the first Christian martyr of California. Well, we're on the coast. We're at the Torrey Pines Beach, and we have cliffs on one side of us and the ocean on the other side. So this is a really cool spot. It is 69 degrees, feels wonderful, and it is a beautiful spot. As I turn around, you can see how the cliffs are and how it goes all the way down this beach. It is so beautiful here. And one thing that's really interesting is you see this pile of rocks right here. That's from an avalanche that came down from that cliff. So came crashing down. There's some rocks for me to go through and see what I can find. See what I can dig out of there. So Connor is standing next to this rock or this boulder for scale, and you can see where it landed down here on the beach. But it must have been something when it fell off of this cliff up there. You can see where it came from, and it came tumbling down with all this debris, and there it is. And you can see the different layers of this rock, how there's different colors in it, and Connor can peel some of it right off. It's just like a bunch of impacted sand. It's pretty neat. All right, so walking along and about to watch this sunset, but Connor was telling me that somewhere along here, I don't know where, but there's a section of nudist beach. So I was thinking, if the sunset sets and the moon comes out, it might as well be my moon. Let's go find the nude beach and let's take our clothes off, Connor. Where are you going? Hey, stop! Well, here we are with the sunset behind us. That's what I've been waiting for. Well, there it went. Finally got to see the sunset on the ocean, and it was beautiful. You got to see it with me. So it's been a long day. We're about to put our shoes back on and head back to the civilization and go back to my hotel room. And I'm going to sign off for this episode of Chad's Adventures, and I'm glad you got to come along with me today.